Welcome to Breaking Bread Podcast with your hosts, Chelsea Passon
and Dayna Black. Welcome to episode 3 of season 1, Moments of Miracles.
Now let's break bread together. I really like your sweatshirt.
Thank you.
It's such a cool color.
I think we're like matching, kind of. Yours is a little bit
mine's
more green.
Yours is like gray.
This is the color of my whole life. My walls
That's
in my house.
Your house wall. I was going to say, it literally is your house walls.
The color of my walls. The color, I have so many shirts this color.
And then black.
How would you even describe this?
Grayish?
It's a stone. Greige.
Grayish. So gray and beige. It looks like it's like
No, that's
beige.
a color. It's the color of my walls.
Huh?
Greige. Greige.
Like green and beige?
No, I'm not even kidding you. It's called greige. I'm looking it up right now.
Real quick.
Greige color. Yes. Look.
Greige. Okay, cool. I believe you. It might have a little bit of green in it, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know color theory. Everyone, this is her walls at her house.
Oh, you can't see it
they
on
can't
there.
see it.
That is so.
I
it's my
love
favorite
it.
color.
I love
Thank you. Thank you. It's very comfortable. Someone told me the other day. I was in all black, and I think I had like a pop of this color. And they were like, "You're always in black or that neutral color." And I was like, "Yeah, they're my favorite." They were like, "Your personality doesn't really match those colors." I'm like, "What does that mean?"
I could not see you in
They were like, "Yeah, but they were like, you're so bubbly. Like, I thought you would have worn brighter colors." I'm like, "That is so funny."
I guess because I know you now, like I do not see you in neon-y or like bright colors, like
right.
So which is funny because like my best friend Olivia, you met her.
Yeah.
I
know Olivia.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Which is so insane. Okay, Olivia and I are best friends. Okay, every time I go out, she's dressed and decked out in like bright like pastel neon, and I'm like all black.
That is so funny.
And she also did photography for the longest time as well. Her style is very like rainbowy, pretty, like pastel colors, and I'm like beige and neutral boho. It's so crazy.
I love that. So last episode, we were talking about your testimony with Kellen and your kids, and you know it got me thinking. I wasn't planning on talking about Baylor, but I thought that it would go really well because it really is a miracle. Like it goes right along with this season, Moments of Miracles.
The things you had done with Baylor tied us in to kind of meeting because they Alyssa and Nathan kept telling me at church before I even met you that there's someone at our church who has a G2 baby. I remember that being at their house for the very first time. They were telling me about you. And I was like, who is Dayna? Like, who is this girl? And it went on a couple more weeks. I still had never met you until we had the women's night. And I was like, hi, I'm Chelsea. And like, I was like, you're the one who has the G2 baby.
Yes.
And because I think you had Baylor at home at the time.
Yeah.
The very first one that I went to.
Yeah, I did.
And it was so insane because that's how we connected. And we were talking about like what G2 that each other had, like what supplies you use, what formula. And I was like, this is so weird talking to someone because I never knew anyone personally who had a G2 baby.
And you were in it like at the moment that we met. Your kids were like 7 or something at the time. So you were already deep in it for 7 years, and I was kind of new. So it was really cool seeing you with 7-year-olds and have gone through something like that for so long, and me being fresh into it. It was encouraging seeing like your kids and how well they're doing and how like sane you were, because at the time I was like mentally drained, and you came in like with a big smile, and it was just really cool. It gave me a lot of hope.
I didn't know that.
Hearing you didn't know that?
No, you didn't.
I don't know if I ever told you that. No. Yeah, it was like a breath of fresh air.
Mine was the same thing, because I was like, I have someone I can talk to about these things that I deal with every single day with Kellen on the feeding tube. Yeah,
and I was trying to figure everything out at the time too. Like I think you were pretty established. Like everyone y'all already had a schedule. Y'all had a plan. I was still in it trying to figure out, what were some of the diagnoses that she was having, because it was such rare conditions, like with her genetic and all that.
So, okay, take me back, because you've only told me a little bit about Baylor. How did y'all even get, like, Baylor? Like, what happens to the situation, whatever, to where you had Baylor into your life? Because she's not y'all's
No.
baby.
Yeah. So it was kind of like a very, very short notice situation. Someone on my husband's family wasn't able to care for Baylor, and so we got the call. My mother-in-law was taking care of her at the very, very beginning, just for a few weeks, and then my husband and I stepped in, and eventually, like, we became her foster parents, and we had her for about, I don't know, 15, 16 months, something like that. But when we got her, it was right out the NICU. She was in the NICU for a month. Yeah. She wasn't born premature. She was born healthy. She just had some medical condition. She had a genetic, something wrong with her genetics, and it was causing her to not be able to really eat by mouth and stuff. So, there's like a list, and I don't need to share all of them, but pretty much she had to be on a feeding tube. We went through therapy and all. And then she had a really rare genetic condition that kind of affected her heart, her lungs, her thyroids, things like that. So, I mean, we saw so many doctors and therapists. And on top of that, this is what I truly think was the biggest issue out of everything, was that she had an intolerance to milks and formulas. So this poor baby was throwing up her guts all day, every day, and she had a cleft palate as well. So when she would throw up, it not only would come out of her mouth, it would come out of her nose, so she could breathe it in, and it could get in her lungs. It was a disaster. And being on the feeding tube, you had to watch the rate versus the dose, how much you're giving her, what you're giving her. Remember? Yeah, we did some calculations
Dayna
the other
showed
day.
me how to calculate this. I was like, I've just had people help me figure this out. But yeah,
oh my gosh, yeah, it was wild. So eventually we figured out that the intolerance came from an enzyme deficiency. So her body couldn't really break it down, and because she was bypassing the enzymes that break down carbohydrates in your saliva, was like double hit. So, you know, there was so many things that were going on. We were living in the hospital for a long time. When she would get sick, it would be bad. Kind of like how you said with Kellen. When Kellen gets sick, it's just to the extreme, just because there's so many other factors involved. It's not just like a regular child.
when Kellen, that's why I'm so like, I hate to say anal, but anal about where we are and like where Kellen is, because when Kellen gets hit, it's not like, oh, he's at home not feeling well. No, every time he's gotten sick, it's been in the hospital. Like Thanksgiving 2 years ago, we were in the hospital for 30 days with Kellen.
Oh my gosh.
He had like the flu. He had the sickness that turned into the flu or something like that turned into pneumonia, that turned into an infection.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm very like, wash your hands.
Yes.
Take care of yourself for my children. Yeah. If you are like coughing, do not come to our events or anything. Like stay away. And that's why for the longest time we didn't even go to a church until we found Living Word.
Oh yeah, I do remember you telling me that.
We went there for the very first time, and we saw how small it was and like how small the children thing is, and I was like, okay, I think we'll be okay. And like during like the 6th season, Kellen comes and sit with us in service, and then Zane will go out. But even then, that's like the only thing they do, which is the reason why we decided to homeschool. One of the main reasons. But so tell me, like, when she was born, when Baylor was born, did she have any like issues besides like these things that have happened over time that caused her to have a G-tube? Yeah,
you know, she really had she was very, very healthy. I mean, she was a good size. I think she was about 6 pounds. Wow. The only challenges that she really had was these rare genetic conditions where her head was like a little bit smaller, her mouth was structured differently, she had the cleft palate, she had like, you know, tongue ties, lip ties, and I think it's like micro something, and I need to like refresh my memory, but her head was a little bit smaller and her jaw was recessed, so her gripping on to create that suction was really, really hard for her. So that's why they had to do that emergency feeding tube through her stomach. But you know, throughout the entire, you know, year and a half that I had her, it was like she beat all odds. You know, every single thing the doctor said that something could have went wrong or should be the case, prayerfully she got out of it. I mean, every day, all day, we were praying for her. I mean, even to the point where the therapist was telling me from when she was a super, super young age that she wasn't going to be able to pronounce the word M because of all the tongue ties and the cleft palate in her tongue and all this. And her very first words were mama, which is like so crazy. So it was like every single thing down
Prayer
to
works,
the
dude.
yes,
Prayer works.
down to the smallest detail. She overcame it, and she was walking, she was talking, she was doing everything at the perfect age. I mean, she caught herself up. In fact, she was, in my opinion, she was advanced for a lot of things. I mean, we would say, touch your nose. She would touch her nose. We would say, what does your heart do? She would go like this.
This was under
boom,
a
boom.
year old?
Under a year old.
Did y'all, so I hate to rewind, but did y'all have her when she already had the feeding tube, or she had it?
Yes. Oh,
okay.
yeah. So we got her right. She was in the NICU for a month. We got her right out after that, and she already had the feeding tube at that point. It was kind of like an emergency. Like, she couldn't eat. They had to figure out a way to feed her, so they did kind of like an emergency G-tube. Just with everything happening with her jaw and her mouth and stuff, they figured it was best to, I mean, it was the best way. And it really was a good decision because it got her to a good health, and like she was nourished. And was able to come home, you know.
So y'all had, I think in the last episode, you said something about when I commented about Kellen having early steps. Y'all had early steps as well?
Yeah. So we had early steps. We did several kinds of therapy. I would go to the doctors for therapy, and then we had
early steps is early intervention. For anyone who doesn't know, when you have a young baby, I think it's under 3, they'll come into your house and help you with certain therapies to overcome certain things. But sorry, just
no.
for people who don't know, like, what's early steps?
Yeah, but, it's a great thing to talk about.
What was she on? Like, what type of therapies did she have?
Everything.
Like eating, like
feeding therapy and physical therapy. So it was like occupational therapy, feeding therapy. Honestly, her whole life is a miracle. Just everything about it. I mean, she's beautiful and she's thriving, and the whole story about how, you know, my husband's family, the people that were involved, they got to the point where they were able to care for her, and it was such a, like, God is so incredible how he restores families. That's what he does, you know. He is a God of restoration, and throughout that entire time we were praying for Stefan's family, we were praying for Baylor, we were praying for restoration, and it was so incredible that they were able to mend that relationship again. And she is literally thriving. She's in daycare now. Aww. She's like walking. I know, like,
it was such a blessing on y'all's, and not only for I guess y'all to like experience what it would be like to have y'all's own baby, but to them to have a family member willing to take in a child because you just can't do it at the time.
Right,
like, I couldn't even imagine doing
and
that.
You know, like, God really does do things to prepare us for his plan. And it's always been on my heart to foster kids and to adopt kids. And so my husband as well. My husband's like, we need to open up an orphanage. Like, he is so in love with the idea of caring for him. I mean, that's what the Lord tells us to do. He says, take care of the orphans and widows. Like, that is what we're called to do. We got to help the helpless. And it was a great practice. It opened up our eyes to, like, this is what we want to do. Like, our heart is so set on it. And it was such a blessing being able to care for someone and love someone who needed it the most. You know what I mean? Like, she, growing up, you know, she, like I said, she had all odds against her. You know, I'm sure she was in a lot of pain. She was throwing up. Like, this poor child was pretty traumatized, I would like to say, from the very beginning. And the Lord restored her health, restored her mind. Like, she's brilliant. And being able to play a part in her story and in my husband's family story is such a blessing. And it's like, man, one down, hundreds to go. You know, that's kind of the idea.
I'm sure, like, knowing you and Stefan, y'all probably, like, real prayer warriors during that time. So, like, you were not only praying, but, like, seeing God, like, not just bless those prayers, but like actually can make those prayers come true. So like, I have had multiple times where I've prayed for Kellen, like when he's in the hospital, to get him out of the hospital in the NICU. But then like all the times he got sick, ended up in the hospital, seeing God work through that and actually answering prayers is so mind blowing. But taking care of someone else's child it just puts in a reflection of like, oh, I can help someone who can't even help me back.
Oh yeah, it was a lot too. At the time, I was working and I literally quit my job because like if if I wasn't able to care for her and be home, and you can't just like hire a babysitter to come at the time. And eventually we did, and I taught the babysitter how to care for her. Shout out Emma Conrad. I was able to have somebody in here who played a huge part in Baylor's life too, and helped care for her so I could go back to work. But at the time it was like I was at a crossroads. It's like they're gonna put her in a different home if I can't care for her and make it to all of her appointments. So I ended up
they'll literally take your baby away and give it to someone who can. I don't know if I said that in the last episode. They literally said, if you cannot do this, we'll put Kellen in someone else's hands that someone else can take care of it. I was like, no, buckle up, ready. Yeah. They literally said that. I'm sure that's crazy. If you can't take care of this child, even like this is our blood child, if you can't take care of him, we're prioritizing him and his health and his like what he needs. If you can't do that, we'll give him to someone else. And that really sobered Jordan us up and made us grow up in like 2 seconds, because I don't want to give my child into someone else's hands because I can't do it. So we learned everything. But I can't imagine like all that you went through, and I couldn't even imagine how hard it was. It's like good and bad. Like, yeah, you love to see that a family's reunited, but at the same time, all that time that you put into getting close to someone, and then like just having to give that child back to the family, which is good, but at the same time, I'm sure it was heartbreaking. Yeah,
it's definitely, that's always the hard part, going through that and being away from her. But the amazing part is like, you got to think back, and it's like, sometimes things are just for a season. Right. And, even if it was just for that year and a half, the Lord's plan was done and his will was accomplished. Yeah. And like, we were able to see that through. And, the Lord, he's so good. And when he takes something away, there's more to come, and you just got to know. And I hate saying like there's something better, because you think it's like nothing could be better than her.
No, for sure.
But there could be so many more children that I'm going to be able to see and help through hard times, I mean, literally Baylor, when she was really, really young, because she had no tolerance for any formula, she was labeled failure to thrive.
That Kellen was too.
So was Kellen. Yeah. That is like the worst news you can get in a hospital, when your child is labeled failure to thrive. Like, that stays on their record, and it's,
I know,
they keep that there.
He had that after, even after the NICU, he had failure to thrive, because he came home on the ventilator and everything else, and for the longest time he had that. But like, and I'm so glad he said that, because it reminded me, I can't believe I forgot about that. Failure to thrive, when you're hearing that about your child, but then you're looking back and seeing all that he's
That's what I'm saying.
He's overcome so much, and I will scream it until I'm dead. Prayer works.
Oh,
God is a God of miracles. God can flip the script in 2 seconds. Whatever the doctor is telling you, whatever your diagnosis is, you can hear it, but don't accept it.
Right.
Because we serve a God of impossibles, a God of miracles.
And our words are so important. Like, I remember Stefan and I, no matter what the doctors were saying, we never spoke it. We would come home from appointments and we would be like, she is whole, she is healed, she's beautiful, life. She's brilliant. Like, awesome. I remember praying, like, Lord, let her IQ be out of this world. Like, let her have the highest IQ.
Wow.
Let her be the most brilliant. Give her the kindest heart. Let her be athletic. Like, I just declared all of these things over her. Like, even if it was the worst news ever, I would come home and we would speak XYZ. Nothing but blessings, abundance, peace, happiness, health. Like, we declared it. And sure enough, because there was not one negative word spoken, like, everything that we declared really has come to pass. And it's so incredible to see God's hand over that entire time with her. It's crazy. And, you're sitting there, when, like, going back to failure to thrive too. You get home from the hospital and you're like, what did I do? Like, you're like, I'm such a terrible person. And you blame yourself for all these things. Like, why is she throwing up? I'm such a horrible person. Like, maybe somebody else can do this better than I. Like, you keep thinking this, and God is like, dude, I placed her in your care for a reason. Like, you were chosen for this time. Like, just trust me. Like, I kept hearing that throughout the whole time I had her. Like, just trust me. Trust me. And sure enough, like, when you put your faith and trust in Jesus, it really does.
Yeah. And then I think you vaguely told me about, like, you and Stefan's, like, ultimate goal. I'm sure that having Baylor is a little bit of a taste of what to come.
Right.
It was probably so good to see, like, okay, this is what this could happen. Like, this could be like our future very soon.
And honestly, you know, some people would take that experience and probably be like, never again. Never again.
I know.
But it sparked something in us.
Really?
And we even said, like, even if it's for seasons, like, even if it's temporary, you know, it's not about adopting and keeping children, which is definitely something that we would love to do.
Right.
It's more about what God has for the small moments. And it's like, even if it's overnight, we take a child in overnight, temporarily, whatever the child needs, we want to have open hands and open hearts saying, God, like, use us. Like, we want to be vessels, whatever anybody needs, like, throw it our way. Like, we want to be open, you know. We don't want to be that person that's like, there's no more room in this inn. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, no.
we want to have open hands and open heart for that. So it was definitely an incredible experience, even though it was the hardest thing I think him and I have ever been through, especially as a married couple. Still to this day, we try not to talk about it too much. You know, we do, and we're healed from anything that's happened throughout that time, and we're more excited for our future than ever. But it's just what it did to us and how it brought us together. We're like, we just can't wait to be parents one day, you know?
I
it's
know.
gonna be awesome.
And I'm praying, Stephanie, you need to hurry up, because you would be the best mom. Like, even when my kids are over, like, you literally take care of them better than I do at times. I'm like, let me rephrase that. Okay, you are more attentive and like caring. Like, oh, are you hungry? This and that. I'm like, bro, y'all can get up and go get something out of the fridge. I mean, I do help my children,
so
but
funny.
I know how Dayna is, and just like, walk a couple feet, grab something out of the fridge and get something to drink. You're like, I will go get it for you. You're more attentive and caring and like nurturing. Not that I'm not. I'm just like, I guess at the point where they're old enough to do things on their own. I'm like, okay, you got it, because I've done it for so long and taken care of so much, and I will forever be like wanting my children to hold them and take care of them. But I'm like, wow, when I step into Dayna's house, she's like, Chelsea, you hungry? You want this? I'm like, I'm getting like top notch food. She brought snacks to this podcast. Like, yeah,
I brought snacks.
Awesome.
Yeah, it really is amazing to see like what God has done in our lives and the people that he's made us to be, you know.
Y'all would be amazing parents, and I pray that is very, very soon in y'all's future, because you are a great mom. And seeing even just like the glimpse of like us seeing you and Baylor at that time, I can tell you cared for her really well.
Yeah.
And like I said, I would love to.
Thank you.
I would love to adopt one day, but I don't know if I could ever foster to adopt. I've talked to Jordan about that. It's hard to like take in something and to care and put so much effort and time, especially you going through something. It wasn't just a normal baby that just needed help. It was a baby that had medical issues that you had to put time and effort into caring for. I don't know if I could ever do that and then have it like leave my hands. Yeah. But then that just goes to where are you putting your like value in and your time and effort in? If it's of God, it'll stay. If it's not from God, it could just be a season at that moment to give you a taste of what is to come. So, because I know you've vaguely talked about like you and Stefan's ideas with me. Yeah,
and I'll tell you something that you have to mentally prepare yourself for is that disconnect, like disconnecting yourself emotionally from that. But I'll tell you, I told God, I'm like, even if it's for a season, I want to love every child that's in my care as if they are mine. So it was good. It was great practice, because the worst thing you can do is to take in a child and emotionally disconnect from them because you don't want to get hurt or whatever. Right. They need someone, even if it's for a season. They need every child that has been through any kind of trauma or emotional effect. They need a parent or an adult that's going to take them in and connect with them emotionally and love on them as if it's their own. Wow. So it's something that you have to train yourself. I know. And you have to definitely be very prayerful, but you can't not engage with them on that emotional level just because you don't want to get hurt. So it's definitely something that I'm sure is always going to be a roller coaster, but it's something that we're willing to do
you have
for
to
the
just
child.
Like pray and prepare for that. And like I said, not that I would ever be able to not do it or do it. I don't know, like right now, I don't know if I could take on like a baby in foster care to foster it for a little while and then just like have it leave. But you know, at the end of the day, like you said, it's all in God's hands, and it could just be a first season, and it's a blessing that I would be able to do that I don't know if I can mentally do it. Lord, you're going to have to help me through all that. But that's awesome. And I applaud you because, like I said, I talked to Jarda multiple times. I don't know if I could ever foster children. Like, I just get attached and I'm like, I don't know.
I said that too. That's exactly what I said. At the very beginning,
Really?
I was like, I only want to adopt. Like, the only time I'm going to take a child in is if I'm going to have them forever. But, you know, the Lord definitely changed my heart on that and showed me, like, you know, some things are for a season. And he was pretty much like, I need somebody who's going to have their hands open and their hearts open to do whatever I need them to do. So, I mean, and look, the Lord's got a different plan and purpose for everybody. Right. So it may not be something that you're called to do. I mean, you have to have a calling and an anointing for that kind of work because it's definitely a very emotional kind of work. But I'll tell you, like, if it is God's plan for you, he's going to give you the grace and the wisdom to do so.
If that's something, I hope that he opens that door and lets us be physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually able to do that. But I applaud you for doing that because that is hard.
Yeah.
Having to go through all that and put in time and effort and then just like not have that anymore, have like a shift change, because I'm sure it was a shift change to having her and then a shift change to not having her.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it definitely was. And I think one of the ways that I cope with that kind of loss is like, let's just fill my house with a whole bunch of other kids. Like, let's just keep doing it. And I think my husband's way was like, okay, let's take a break. Like, let's get prepared. You know, financially, it was definitely a big sacrifice. So he's like, let's get caught back up again. And so there was that challenge of, you know, learning how we're both coping with things differently and kind of finding that middle grounds. But, you know, with God, everything's possible. And it worked out great.
Yeah, for sure.